Good evening. From RC Kolkata, I, Dipankar Ghosh, Academic Counselor of BSWMSW. I am trying to discuss my new topic about BSW 123, Unit 2, that is History of Community Organizations. Today I will going to discuss on these issues on BSW 123, program BSWG. Actually, today we are going to discuss on this topic. So basically in this area or in this topic, there are some components that we are going to discuss. What are the components that we are going to discuss? The essential areas of discussing this part is at first objectives, then introductions, then the purpose of this topic, and then what is community organizations, history of community organizations from abroad. So at very beginning, at first we are trying to give you a picture on why should we study the community organizations. We can learn a lot of from our history. Almost all the subjects, basically academic subjects, almost all our learnings, teachings, there is a vital part from our historical era. From this phenomena, we can learn a lot from the history. That variety of social changes, group faced with many odds and with poor beginnings, we have in the end. That's why history makes us clear that progress is nothing but a need to learn the death or hope, but trends as the patterns, follows the patterns of these issues. So many techniques, technologies, applying methods, and so on. And what is our mode, the strategies adopted in the past, and to provide us concrete lessons also. In sensitives as to the problems and possibilities of changes. Regarding this, community organizations plays a fantastic role of being changing the lifestyles of human patterns and the status of human activities and history of community organizations also. You will also to introduce the different approaches regarding these issues, various models, various parts of actions regarding these issues. So, after completing the discussions, according to my opinion, we should able to learn the very parts that I'm going to discuss. That is, at first we try to understand the history of community organizations. Then in this topic, we will going to discuss the philosophy of community organizations also. Third, analyzing the various approaches and models of community organizations. Discuss the spirit of community organizations in India and need to develop a positive attitude towards the development of efforts in Indian philosophy. Also, we can learn the critically examine the past efforts and discuss the emergencies of new phases. So the previous units have given you uh, views on the community organizations era, whereas in this topic we can easily denote and works with the Western countries, especially the England and the USA, thinking of European countries regarding this part. So, in this unit, we will be able to deal with the part of history regarding community organizations. So, the term community organizations cover a serious or a series of activities at the community level which aimed at the beginning about desired improvement in the social well-beings of the individuals and groups and neighborhoods also. So community organizations is about creating a democratic instrument to bring about sustained social changes also. According to the Mariji Rose, community organizations is a process by which a community identifies needs and takes actions, and in doing so, the development of cooperative attitudes and practices also happens. What is the philosophy of community organizations? In discussions of philosophy of community organizations, the early attempts in cooperative organizations were an outcomes of the serious matters regarding the social problems, that is problems of unemployment, problems of marital affairs, poverty, superstitions, tribal problems, political issues, grown up problems, all these between in between a society. Soon it was realized that all these essential efforts need to change regarding this part. So, at a point of time, we might ask what has been the driving force behind all these efforts that promoted the people of goodwill to render services to the community. So let us look at the philosophy of community organizations, which may throw some lights on the same issues. At first, the fundamental aspects of community organizations is the principle or cooperative spirit which promotes the people to unite together to address common issues or common facts, the problems. Secondly, community organizations recognitions the spirit of democratic values and principles with the force to create democratic involvement also. Organizations is about uh, empowering when the people unite together. So the community organizations recognizes the power of individual. It believes that through the collective strength of people, better teamwork and adoptions is very much essential and very much appreciable to the community. Another philosophy is that coordinations. It is concerned with adjustment and interrelations of the forces in the community life for common welfare also. Lust community organizations is therefore a continuous process in which sorry adjustment are made to remade to keep pace with the changing conditions of community life also. So these are the points. These are the steps of being forming the community organizations from the historical areas to glorify our civilizations also. So, what are the community organizations in historical part? In a broader sense, we can say whenever people have lived together, some form of organization has emerged. These informal associations of people always try to go good to the people in need and to protect their fundamental rights by doing the functional approaches also. The first efforts to community organizations for social welfare were initiated in England to overcome the acute problem of the poverty, which led to beggary. The first effort to its kind was the pattern of Elizabeth's Poor Law, that is 1601 in England, which was set up to provide service to the needy. Another important landmark in the history of community organization is the formation of London Society of Organizations and the charitable relief and representing the mendicancy and the origin of the settlement house, that is 1880 1880. So in fact those movement had a major impact in the United States of America. In the charities organizations was set up to put rational order in the area of charity and relief. The major community organizations activities in the United States could not be classified And also it is to be discussed on three parts. Number one, the charity organizations period, that is 1870 to 1917, the charity organizations period. Secondly, the rise of federations 1917 to 1935. And the third one is period of expansions and professional development, that is 1935 to present era. So it started from 1870, 1870, and continue till now at the present time. So there are three parts, three eras, history of community organizations divided. Between the three parts, the most important era is the rise of federations, that is 1917 to 1935. It is a period where we can see the growth and the development of chests and councils also. It started with the rise of war chests in 1917 and ended with the enactment of Social Security Act, which set the stage of development of the public and the welfare of 1935. A large number of chests and councils came up after First World War. The American Associations for Community Organizations was organized in 1918 as the National Agency for Chests and Councils, and it later became known as Community Chest and the Councils of CCE. And it was formed. A community chest is a voluntary welfare agency, cooperative organizations of citizens, and welfare agencies, which is the powerful local force for community welfare that handles large funds. It has two functions. It raises funds through a community wide appeal and distributes them according to a systematic budgets procedure. Secondly, it promotes cooperative planning, coordinations, and administrations of the community social welfare also. In 1947, 46, I suppose, yes, 1946, at the National Conference of Social Work in Buffalo, the Associates for the Study of Community Organizations, ASCO, was organized. So another development that took place at the wartime is the growth of closer relationships between labor and social work also, which is considered to be the great significance to community organizations. The other developments that took place after the World War II, which was very specific to community organizations area, as follows. There are three essential parts regarding these issues. Number one, the rehabilitations of the physically and mentally challenged. Secondly, mental health planning problems of the aging. Third, prevention and treatment of the juvenile delinquency. So, in order to address these issues, separate bodies were set up, and we see the entry of international agencies also. In the field of community organizations, the present situation is community organization is the emergency of new community development programs, which aim at providing services to the less development areas in international social welfare. So therefore, the present agenda is on working with the whole community and greater emphasis is on self-help. So, in the term of historical development through community organizations in India, that is, a historical account of community organization is not available in India, as there has been only limited documents on social work literature in general and on community organizations in a particular. Community organization has its roots in the charity organizations in the United States of America. They released the need of the people and tried to organize the actual fact of this part, and they operate the functional approaches regarding the ordinary to ordinate to explain the work also. So the main activities of where the social welfare and raises their desires regarding the social work activity even before the commencement of the social phases too. And it was started in 1936 in India. The community work was in a place already in the existence, but in the first phase from 1936 to 1952, the community work was in existence. But in the first phase, dormant stage during the period, social work was in its infancy and not many were employed in the community settings because there were hardly any jobs that provided an opening for community organizations. So professionals prefer to work in course of settings. It was in 1952 that the community development projects were launched by the government of India, and we found the energetic or emerged of the new era of community organizations. The basic objectives of community development in India was to awaken the rural problem of their needs, installing in them a sense of ambitions for better life and making them aware of their rights and power to find solutions for the problems also. So community development is a uh, so that is the focus on this issue, that community organization extension educations and processes also. Extension educations, the community organizations extension educations was expected to improve the quality of human beings by improving his or her knowledge and skills. By community organizations, Mukherjee had the mind to setting up of the three institutions in the village also. So three parts on these issues is village panchayats, village cooperatives, and the village school. During this period, the thirst of community work remained in rural areas, whereas social work remained mostly urban to the character. From 1970 onwards, we could see a new trend in the community work practice. The social workers expanded their scopes and operational areas from their traditional part. So another trend in the community work is the involvement of the business houses in promoting welfare in their neighborhood. This is commonly known as CSR. The business houses, that is Tata's, Escorts, and some of the multinational companies too, have joined in these ventures. This trend has attracted many professionals in this field. The main objectives of the community development is to develop village communities by methods which will stimulate, encourage, and aid villagers themselves to do much of the work necessary to accomplish the desired goals. The changes conceived and promoted should have the involvement of the people and should be acceptable to them and put into practice by them. There is a common philosophical link between community organizations, the variety of community organizations program, and it is concerned with how to induce people to meet their basic human needs, to be target oriented also. What is the Gandhian approaches to community organizations? Gandhiji has not given a clear-cut definitions of the term community. For him, the village as the basic community with its geographical limitations, where a number of families come together and cooperated to build a common life. According to Gandhi, the basic elements of a community is mutual cooperation and common sharing. The emphasis of Gandhian concept of community work is on this reconstructions of the community rather than an organizing an unorganized or disorganized community or the development of the entirely new community also. Therefore, the Gandhian objects of the community work is to reconstruct the village communities spread all over the country. This reconstruction is based on the constructive programs designed to meet the social welfare needs to the community. It is programs designed to meet the social welfare needs of the community also. It is through the constructions of the village community. Gandhi aims to realize the goal of the recognitions, that is Sarvodaya social order. Gandhi has not given any specific of reconstructing the fixed pattern for the reconstructions program, but let it to be capacity of those community organizations working to suit different conditions and social situations also. So these are the basic features of the Gandhian organizations or Gandhian concepts. What are the models of community organizations? What is the model? Before we proceed to understand the different methods and models of community organization, it is good to understand the terminology. What is a model? Model. It is a medium through which a person looks at the complex realities. Model is a simplistic versions of a complex situation. Models serve as a reference for the work and give us a clear understanding of what would happen. They describe the strategies for accomplishing a vision and the appropriate steps to be taken to get there. Some models grow up of the specific ideologies of change and some in response to concrete situations. There are three types of models. Number one, locality development, social planning, social actions. What are the local development? Locally development. Locally development model is a method of working with community groups. It was earlier used by the settlement house. Here the primary focus is on the process of community building. Leadership development and the educations of these participants are the essential elements in this process. According to the Ross, Mr. Murray Ross, the process of self-help and communal actions is the basic beliefs is that communities have some common needs and interest, and once the people realize this need and work together democratically, they can take appropriate steps to improve the quality of the life. Here the role of community organizer is to change the involvement of the people in the community and help the community members to plan and find the solutions to the problem. It is similar to the work of community development which is done in the underdeveloped world. It refers to the community organization's practice when a worker or an agency attempt to develop various schemes and programs to meet the needs of the target populations in a definite area. It also includes coordinations of the work of various agencies providing a variety of services in the area. Secondly, social planning. The type of community work where a worker or agency undertakes an exercise of evaluating welfare, needs and existing services in the area and suggest a possible blueprint for a more efficient delivery to the service. It is termed as social planning. It is concerned with social problems. For example, housing, education, health, childcare, and so on. Its aim is to affect a large population. The community planner works in that capacity with the government and it often identified with power structure of the community. But basically, he is interested in the needs of attitudes of the community and help them plan their futures. Model C, third parties, that is social actions, that is very much essential for the social action is an individual group or community effort within the framework of this social activity or social work philosophy of practice that aims to achieve social process. to modify social policies and to improve social legislation and health and welfare services. Another model of community organization suggested by Rothman is that social actions, according to him, social actions is a strategy used by the groups or sub-communications or even national organizations also. So they confront with the power structure using conflict as a method to solve their issues related to inequities and deprivations. In this type of community organizations, the community organizer uses all means to apply pressure on the power structure to give into demands. The role of the organizer may differ depending on the issues they get involved in. The role may be that of an advice or the advocate activities, a broker or a legislator. It is a process, and this organizing process goes through different stages. So the role of the organizer will also change as per the roles of the organizer in expected to play, depending upon differing social situations. This model was commonly used during 1960s. This has been used as a means to redress the social problem of the nation. So, what are the approaches of the community organizations? What are the different approaches of the community organizations? The history of the history has witnessed the diversity of efforts during community organizations. And the emergence of new initiatives in the field. Most often, these community organizing efforts are entered on identity and to communities and issue specifics. So, what are the neighborhood organizings? Neighborhood organizings is one of the interesting form of community organizations. This is nothing but an effort by the community to solve the day-to-day problems and help those in need. There are three kinds of opportunities and approaches to the neighborhood organizings. Number one, the social work approaches. Secondly, the political activities approaches. Thirdly, the neighborhood maintenance community development approaches also. The first one discussions is social work approaches. In these approaches, the society is viewed as a social organisms and therefore the efforts are oriented towards building a sense of community. So the community organizer whose role is of an enabler or an advocate helps the community to identify a problem in the neighborhood and strives to obtain the need of social resources also. This method is more concessional. An example of the approaches is the social settlement movement in USA and war on poverty programs. All over the world, almost all the part of the world, there we faces the poverty problem. Second discussing topic is the political activities approach. In this approach, the community organizations or the community is seen as a political entity and not as social organisms. Here, the neighborhood is viewed as a potential power base capable of getting power. So, the role of the community organizations is to help the community understand the people in terms of power. The problem of the neighborhood is always identified as absence of power, and in this interest of gaining power for the neighborhood, unlike the social work approaches to the community organizations, this approaches has the potential to create stable, democratic and effective organizations of the neighborhood residents by seeing its role as meeting power with power. Third point is neighborhood maintenance community development approaches. These approaches has emerged out of the both of the previous approaches, mainly social work approaches and political activities within the same neighborhood movements. It is seen in the form of civic associations also. These associations uses peer group pressure to provide services in the community. They use this strategy to pressurize the officials to deliver services to the community, but sometimes these approaches takes the form of political activities and approaches as they realize their goals can be only achieved through confrontable. So the history has witnessed diversity of the efforts. It is clearly identified and stable too. According to the Gandhia's concept, Gandhian's concept regarding social work practice, village is the basic community within geographical limitations. Uh, Village is the only stage that has not given a clear cut concept. So the emphasis on Gandhian concept of community work is on reconstructions of the community rather than the basic elements of the community is mutual cooperations and common sharing. Mutual cooperations and common sharing. These are the common parts regarding community organizations. These are the main effective parts of these issues. So we have discussed the history of community organizations as the method of social work. We have seen how to early efforts of the social reformers and activities to improve the living conditions also. For deprived the communities in the West gradually transferred into the formal methods of social work. The Indian experience is also discussed the details with emphasis of Mahatma Gandhi's contribution to the nation, to the society, and for the betterment of the poor people also. We have also seen that there are different approaches within community organizations that can be chosen to deal with social problems. And all these approaches are the emphasis of Gandhian concept of community organizations is the reconstructions of the community. Therefore, the Gandhian objectives of the community organization is to reconstruct the village communities also and spread all over the country. Gandhi has always said power without education and women's empowerment, also education, is very much essential to change their society. The role of the worker in this approach is very distinct. Here, the worker is not only deals with these groups of people or communities who seek this guidance, but he would also approaches even those communities also, which do not ask for help. His prime work being reconstructions and reconstructed also. So another suggestive issue on this part regarding social work subject, that is, why should we study history? Why should we study the history? In what respect we should study the history? We can learn a lot from the history. Historical development always shows some essential points regarding these issues also. We can easily discuss and diagnose the changes phenomena of the society from the earlier age to present age. We can easily denote and discuss regarding this. In short, history sensitizes us to the problems and possibilities of change, provides concrete advice for the present day to day actions, and sustain our actions with the hope and pride also. And that comes from the learning the past experience. Therefore, the study of the history of community organizations becomes essential for a social worker. At any cost, it is being completely essential and completely strengthened for these issues. We, the common people, also the civilized person, cannot ignore the historical development or the social changes regarding these issues. So, community organization recognizes the spirit of democratic values and principles with the focus on it. Another philosophical views is that of coordinations in the concerned with adjustment. So community organizations is therefore a continuous process in which adjustment are made of. In a broader sense, we can see that whatever people have lived together, some form of organizations have emerged. This informal association is basically associates of the people always try to do good to the people. The first effort of its kind was the Poor Law in England, which was set up to provide services to the needy. Another important landmark in the history of community organization is the formation of London Society of Organizing Charitable Relief and representing the mendicancy and the origin of the settlement house movement in England during 1880s. These are the common points and discussing issue regarding the same part of this pattern. So it gives the sense of leaderships in this movement. Within a short span of 6 years, COS had reached to more than 25 American cities regarding this issue. The community chest is a voluntary welfare agencies and it acts as a part of these situations. We all can easily be examined and emphasize on these issues. What is that issues? What do you mean by these issues? What is going on? The community chest is a voluntary welfare tool. The National Conference of Social Work in 1938 to 39 undertook a study on the community organizations, which was later published under the title of generic community organizations. Based on the another study was undertaken in 1940, but due to American involvement in World War II, the program could be take off. So the community organizations in UK, there were 3 or 4 phases. On that phases, the activity was happened. The part of community organizations. In order to address these issues separately, separate bodies were set up, and we see the entire of international agencies in the field of community organizations. The present situations in community organizations is the emergences of the new community development programs also, which aims at providing services to the less development areas in international social welfare also. What are the and greater emphasis on the self attainments or self problems? So, as a whole, there are some basic components regarding the community organizations or history of community organizations. So, we should follow the history of community organizations in front of the because community organization is a series of good work that has happened from the earlier stage, and we are now discussing and we are not now diagnosing the historic era of community organizations. So our conversations or our discussions regarding the history of community organizations, I can easily be uh, endorse the point that is in society's development, community organizations is very much essential, and above all, a sustainable development from all the sides, that is very much essential. And I suppose it is very much aggressive steps for doing the activity or functions regarding this issue. So today I will going to end our discussions. Tomorrow we will meet a new sessions and new topics, and we will discuss on this issue. So thank you all the learners, all the viewers from my side. That's all for today. Thank you. Thank you all.